This portion of the Sports Zone driven by Leader Automotive Group, and nice enough to join us from the United Center. Made his way here to the studios. On set, Jonathan Toews, his buddy, Joe Brand. Joe Brand, a former intern here at Fox 32. Good to have you in the house. Let's talk about the Blackhawks, and let's talk about what's going on with Jonathan Toews. Joe does all the pregame and postgame shows on WGN Radio, and I touched on him being a former intern here now, but he's doing play-by-play for John Weideman as well, who had some throat problems. Jonathan Toews announced today he's stepping away from hockey because of health issues that sidelined him throughout the 2021 season. He released this statement before tonight's game, and it said in part, quote, "Thank you to the fans and all those who have shown concern about my absence. I'm still dealing with the symptoms of long COVID and chronic immune response syndrome. It has been really challenging to play through these symptoms. In the last few weeks, it has reached the point where I had no choice but to step back and concentrate on getting healthy." All right, Joe, Toews has not played since January 28th. Were you surprised by today's announcement?
Wasn't totally surprised by the announcement, but this clarity definitely helps, right? It's not a great situation. Obviously, first and foremost, what Blackhawks fans and the Blackhawks themselves care about is Jonathan Toews' health. He took a game off earlier in December, right? He came back. He took a game off on that road trip in Canada, came back, and then was out since January 28th, like you mentioned. That's what gives me the belief that he's not officially done. He was just on the ice last week. Those workouts didn't go as planned. So they just want to make sure that he's totally fit to come back and play at the capacity that he would like to. I mean, he's a competitive guy, and this is not easy on him right now. So this is very difficult for him. I think he's trying to avoid missing as much time as possible, but clearly he's at least putting his health in front of all that right now.
Interesting you say that, because trade deadline is coming up March 3rd, 2 o'clock Chicago time, and I was going to ask you how that affected the Hawks' ability to trade Jonathan Toews at this point.
Kyle Davidson said today that first and foremost they care about his health, and anything else regarding the trade deadline is secondary. I would be surprised if we saw Jonathan Toews play a game before the trade deadline. It's coming up on March 3rd, but now after the All-Star break, all these games are kind of jam-packed. So it's basically pretty clear, cut and dry that Jonathan Toews is going to contractually finish this year with the Chicago Blackhawks. Patrick Kane, though, a completely different situation.
I want to get to Kaner in a second. Any chance Jonathan Toews has played his last game as a Blackhawk? Is there any chance that he does not come back?
I'm not ready to jump to that conclusion because, again, he missed one game in December. He missed one game in January. He came back. He was on the ice last week. It just didn't go as well as they had planned it to be. I think Jonathan Toews has a lot of hockey to give for Blackhawks fans in terms of I doubt he wants to be done. Knowing the competitive spirit, the competitive guy he is, he's got a lot left in his tank to give Blackhawks fans, I would assume. So I can't jump to the conclusion that he's totally done with the Hawks just yet.
All right, let's get some reaction from General Manager Kyle Davidson and also head coach Luke Richardson.
We miss him being around the team, and we want to get him back around the team and on the ice. But in the meantime, we're going to work with him and support him in whatever he needs to make sure he's feeling good and feeling strong.
Unfortunately, he wasn't getting the results that he wanted, so I think collaboratively we just felt like stepping back and trying for him to figure out and try and get some answers. It's the best thing for his health, and you know, we just support him in every way that way.
All right, we know everyone wants answers. We all obviously want Jonathan Toews back on the ice. Is there any chance now that Jonathan Toews, since he won't be moved, there's an opportunity out there for a contract extension with this franchise?
I'm also not ready to jump on that conclusion as well. This has been a rough year for Jonathan Toews. He got off to a great start. Another reason why I don't think he's done, because he had a rough year last year. He was kind of rough coming into this season, but he proved all the haters wrong by getting off to his fastest goal start with 11 goals in the shortest amount of time that it's taken him in the past. I've gone back and forth with wondering what Toews and Kane are going to do and what the Blackhawks want to do with them. It's just going to come down to, at the end of the season, the question was posed to Kyle Davidson today, do you think that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews might come back next season? But even Kyle Davidson's got a lot on his plate right now. He's worried about the trade deadline right now. He can't think about next season just quite yet. Optimistic thinking, I would think, for Blackhawks fans, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions that Jonathan Toews needs to answer for himself before he can think about next year.
All right, give us the latest on the Patrick Kane trade rumors.
Well, if you missed tonight's game, it was quite a farewell tour, if it would be one. I mean, a hat trick. This guy had 9 goals coming into this weekend. He nearly matched that over the past 2 games. He had 5 goals total from Friday and tonight. He had a 4-point game. This is vintage Kane, right? Just making things happen, finding the back of the net any way possible.
Why? Why now?
It's tough to say, but there has been some trouble with him finding some chemistry with his line mates. It's been a difficult year. He doesn't have all the talent in the world, but I think he's finding a lot more chemistry with guys like Philip Kurashev and Max Domi on that top line. And I think he just kind of got a revived spirit after scoring a couple of goals in Ottawa on Friday, just kind of back to the Patrick Kane things. And he seemed pretty sentimental with the Blackhawks fans when he was the #1 star. I think he's really starting to take it in that this could be his final days at the United Center as a Blackhawk. Only 1 home game left before the trade deadline.
Has he decided which teams he would allow Davidson to trade him to?
If he has not made that public, or at least he has not even told Kyle Davidson. When he was expressing his displeasure about Vladimir Tarasenko going over to the New York Rangers, he was, frustrated because New York was definitely a destination he would have liked to go. Refreshing to hear a hockey player be that open and honest, but a little surprising too. But then towards the end of that media scrum, he made it clear he has not given Kyle Davidson any list of teams as of yet. I don't think Patrick Kane knows what he wants to do. And I think today, the game he had...
Is there any chance he stays?
I think there's a very good chance he stays. The fact that he has not decided whether or not to go tells me that he is definitely leaning towards staying. He's a mature dude now, right? He's got a kid. He lives here in the off seasons. He's not going back to Buffalo anymore. So I think he likes Chicago very much deep into his heart, and the idea of finishing his career with the Blackhawks, which is a little rare in the NHL. It's not like back in the day where everyone's finishing their careers with an entire team, and to have 2 players with Toews and Kane, that's even more far-fetched. So I think that does entice them. But it's a rough spot for the Hawks right now. This is year 1 of a rebuild. Everyone's loving Luke Richardson, the coaching staff. Everyone's being transparent. But day in and day out, it's tough to win games for this team. It takes a full 60-minute effort. That's what you saw tonight against Toronto. But it takes a lot. So it depends on how much fun they're having.
Winning is not the Connor Bedard plan, though, is it?
That's true. No, it's not. I think there's a lot of value in pulling out games like this against Toronto because it instills just a winning culture, a winning vibe in that locker room, which is just important for this team to stay motivated each and every day. But yes, there's a lot of value in losses right now. There's no hiding away from that. That's clearly what the Blackhawks are trying to do.
Is it Bedard or bust?
I wouldn't say Bedard or bust. The experts are calling this one of the deepest drafts ever. Connor Bedard is what they call a generational talent right now, though. So other teams are doing this. It's not just the Blackhawks. So if I understand why Hawks fans might be frustrated that they're going this route, but they're not the only team in the league that's doing this. It's supposed to be a very deep draft. Adam Fantilli is the expected #2, but now this kid from Russia, Matvei Michkov, is turning a lot of heads as well. It's going to be a long road, but a Connor Bedard acquisition would kind of speed up that whole process. So I think that's what everyone's got their fingers crossed for.
Thanks for stopping by.
You think I'd miss your birthday?
I love it. WGN's Joe Brand joining us, talking some Blackhawks with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane's future on hold right now. We are just getting started here on the Sports Zone. Coming up next, we'll talk some baseball with Cassie Carlson. She's in Arizona prior to the White Sox and Cubs' first full squad practice. And once the Bulls come back from the All-Star break, they have 23 games to turn their season around. We'll talk with Sun Times' Annie Constable about it. And if you're a fan of the Sports Zone or our Bear shows, follow us on Twitter. Check us out at Fox Kickoff. You can follow me. I'm at Luke Canellis. Cassie is at Cassie Carlson. And my buddy over here, Joe Brand, is at Joe_Brand1.